Finally, we get some comments from Vasa Micic. Is he officially a Hornet next season? Plus, we have some changes in the television broadcast crew. Bally's, are they back? We got a lot to get to today on Locked On Hornets.
You are Locked On Hornets, your daily Charlotte Hornets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
In a minute, cuz we live.
It's Locked On Hornets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Thanks for making us your first listen. We're free. We're available anywhere you get your pods, and that includes YouTube. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. I'm Walker Mail. That's Doug Branson. Find him on his Substack.
Don't get me started.
Boxscore.com. Yeah, you'll want to take advantage of this deal so you can watch out-of-market games. Here in Carolina, here in Charlotte, the in-market games aren't all that cool. They're not all that fun to watch.
So it might be a good deal. You watch them out of market. But see, for me, it wasn't a good deal. So I took FanDuel up on their offer, and not only was I treated to an out-of-market game where the Panthers got blown out of market, but also I put my $5 down on the hometown for me, Nashville, Tennessee. I put them down on the hometown team, the Titans, who went up 17-0. It was in the bag. I got 3.5 points on the Titans.
Done.
It was in the bag.
Done.
And then somehow got beat by the Chicago Bears, who didn't score an offensive touchdown.
It's
like,
amazing.
if you're gonna lose, if you're gonna have a bad beat, like that's the mother of all bad beats, I think. My God.
Yeah. If you are to say that Chicago will not score an offensive touchdown and Tennessee at least gets to 17,
and your team with 3.5 points is going to be up 17-0. And you somehow lose that game. I mean, you gotta bet the bus.
How much money would you put down if you knew all of that to be true beforehand? I'd put a lot of money. Like I'd get I'd get real dangerous. I'm glad I didn't put any money on Carolina though, nor did I want to. I did the hometown thing. I did the Homer radio host thing. I picked the Panthers to win this game. That didn't happen. Carolina, how about 3 minutes, 6 seconds into this game? The Panthers are down 10-0 because of a bomb from the Saints and a first pass pick from Bryce Young. At halftime, they go into the locker room. It's 30-3. Game over. Bye. Good luck again next week. It was brutal. I'm not even kidding. Like I know the joke is you can say, well, at least it can't get worse, and then it always finds a way to get worse. Like I'm going to knock on wood to try to break the karma, all of that, but Derek Brown being announced potentially out for the season like an hour before we did our 12 o'clock show yesterday. It's as bad a start as you could possibly get off to here in 2024.
Well, to me, I'm going to look for the positive here. And the positive is that this show, Locked On Hornets, is about to go back to 5 days a week starting next week. We've been on for 3 days a week. So if you need a reprieve from the absolute misery that it is to be a Panthers fan, well, I've got good news for you. You can tune into this show on YouTube or wherever you get your audio podcasts 5 days a week. So that's good news number one. Good news number two is that I think if I'm trying to find the Hornets angle here, and I might be dreaming, This is part of the sports commentator in me not being really realistic about how things work within a pro franchise. But if it were me, and I were Charles Lee, or I was a leader on that team, I would walk into training camp when it gets to be that time, and I would say, fellas, we've got a chance to be absolute kings of Charlotte sports right now. Okay? We've got a chance to do something. We've got a chance to revive this city's love of sports, to bring them out of the darkness and be worshiped as heroes. And all we have to do is stay healthy and play decent basketball. That's all. It's not even about making the playoffs, 6th seed, whatever. It's about playing decent basketball and staying healthy and putting a good product out there night in and night out. They've got a chance to be heroes this season.
When they walk out of the locker room, they should do the Notre Dame thing and touch a sign that says "Play decent basketball" and then get pumped.
That's it.
When they go out there on the court.
The bar is so low at this point. All they have to do to clear it is stay healthy.
I asked yesterday on Twitter or Sunday if it was possible for the Panthers to hit rock bottom after just week one, after just one game. And, of course, all the jokes start flying in. Yeah, they're beneath the core. They're beneath the mantle. They're beneath the surface of the earth. Rock bottom does not accurately describe just how low the Panthers are right now after one game in the 2024 season.
Well, yeah, you asked them. I don't know if this was like right before kickoff or right around kickoff, and you asked them specifically to not be, I think you said, unbelievably embarrassing, and they somehow
That's correct.
managed to get beyond that. They went to another level beyond that, and so you're not, number one, you're not allowed to ask the Hornets to do anything preseason before the tip of the first regular season game. So don't even bother doing that. But also, a lot of this revolves around Bryce Young, the quarterback that they sacrificed one of their best wide receiving prospects in years, and they sacrificed number one overall draft pick that became Caleb Williams, who's playing for Chicago right now. And so I was thinking about, is there precedent for that in the Hornets universe? And really there isn't. I mean, you could look at MKG being the number 2 overall pick and that turning out to be, as we've discussed on this show during Hornets Grid, most wasted potential. But that was because of injuries, not because he wasn't playing like he was fit to be in the NBA. Yes, there were shooting concerns, but he would, even if the shot did improve, but even if it didn't, I don't think he would have washed out of the league. It just would have severely limited what he could be.
You could see him as a starter on a team that could make the playoffs and be a really useful defensive player, a guy that gets out in transition. With Bryce, the angle is, can he be a starting quarterback at all? You're talking about completely washes out to the point where he's just not an NFL quarterback, and or his ceiling is on the bench, and you don't want to bring him in, but you have to if your starter is out. Like that, he is not right now a useful starter in the league. It doesn't mean that he can't be, but this is the game we'll go back to suggest this is when we all found out. We'll always go back to the Saints game as when we knew for sure.
Yeah, and look, there is a player in Hornets draft history that this reminds me of, but the situation is completely different because, again, you draft Bryce number 1 overall. There are a lot of expectations on that, and you give up so much to get there that it's completely different. But the player it unfortunately reminds me of that the Hornets drafted was Frank Kaminsky, who there were some expectations. You had the owner step in and Michael Jordan reportedly and make the call to bring this player in over, I think, some other players that people wanted the Hornets to bring in.
Justice Winslow is the guy.
You pass on Devin Booker and Miles Turner, even though and people say, well, Devin Booker was drafted way down the okay, but Steve Clifford liked Devin Booker.
So, yeah, and the comparison there, the thing that salvages them is Justice Winslow was the guy that the Celtics wanted really badly, and that was the reported Godfather offer of picks from Zach Lowe at the time. Like, we've kind of been a little, weary of actually believing that, but some of it may be true. Justice never really became a ton in the NBA. The big thing there is that they could have had one of the Celtics picks, and then they draft Markelle Fultz, or they could have just selected somebody else instead of Markelle. But there are some escape hatches for that.
But the parallels are because Frank Kaminsky came into the league as one of the top players in college and then got to the NBA and faced immediate confidence issues in his shot and his ability to play whatever position they had him in. He contributed on what would be a playoff team eventually, but
it goes to your point.
So that's the parallel.
It goes to your point. There's not a perfect example, right? It goes to your point. There's not the number 1 pick that is hopefully going to save the franchise that you gave up a lot to go get, and then it falls as one of the worst decisions. I mean, it's terrible. It's hurting this Panthers team right now. I'm pulling for him, though, man. Like, Bryce is a great dude. I mean, everybody wants it for him. Everybody wants it selfishly as a fan, but I don't know if it's going to happen. We'll see. Hopefully he can bounce back.
And Schlotkin, just pay attention. Like, I know you're feeling yourself about the trade deadline, about what you did in the last trade deadline, and about what influence you can have over this franchise, and you can have a lot, okay? And that could come with good things, but it can also come with very bad things, as Tepper is finding out right now.
Now, what would have been a nice example, not a nice one, but if we're doing the what if game, as you see teased in the bulletin board over here on the right, if you're watching YouTube, is if the Hornets were to have traded up for another short guy in Reed Shepherd, and Shepherd falls flat on his face. But they didn't do that, and also Reed Shepherd looks pretty damn good.
Yeah, it looks pretty good. It doesn't look like that's going to happen.
So that would have been, with just a couple of tweaks and making some changes, that would have been the perfect example, but it never happened, and you have to make like a decent amount of changes to make that happen.
Well, yeah, and you know, the NBA versus NFL comparison when it comes to the draft, it is sort of what makes it being difficult in the NBA to trade up actually a benefit, because it sort of saves, I think, owners from themselves sometimes, because you have to give up so much to get up there, and it is a crapshoot that, you know, you don't see that happening very much.
Yeah. All right, let's move on. We got some TV updates. We got a lot coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast. Some broadcast changes, and Bally, I guess they're here, they're not, they're going away, they're back.
Yeah, they're zombies. You can't kill them. Zombies.
Yes, I can hear them. They're right behind you. Bally is right behind you, and you are now infected. We'll talk about Bally and some of the changes coming up next on Locked On Hornets. This episode is brought to you by BetterHelp. We appreciate BetterHelp, as always. And as Doug knows, I don't know, but Doug knows, kids are always learning and growing, but as adults, sometimes we lose that curiosity. What's something you'd like to learn? Gardening? A new language? Maybe how to finally beat your best friend in bowling? Therapy can help you reconnect with your sense of wonder, because your back-to-school era can come really at any age. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online. It's designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. And all you have to do is fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist, and then you can switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. Rediscover your curiosity with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, H-E-L-P, BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA. More Locked On Hornets ahead.
Okay, I know we just spent a whole segment talking about Panthers, Hornets, comparisons, because that's a big story in Charlotte right now, you know, what's happening with the Panthers. But we went through a whole segment, and I didn't even get to my Dave Canales take about him not playing the players in the preseason. I went on a huge rant a couple of weeks ago about him not playing players in the preseason. And I said then that if you come out and get shellacked in week one, everyone's going to point to that and say, hey,
Sure.
They weren't prepared. Even if that's an unfair criticism, they're going to point to that and, hey, look what happened. And I'm just saying, Charles Lee, you know, I don't think he's going to do that, because his quote is everything matters. I think he's going to take the preseason seriously. He's going to take training camp seriously. He's going to take the team dinner seriously. And I'm thankful for that.
Dave Canales did say something like that after the game when asked about the preseason. He said, look, it all matters. Maybe that's something we'll look at. I don't know.
Well, what do you know?
Yeah. Well, they were always going to get criticized if it looked like that. If it looked less than that, and they got beat by 20, people would have been asking that question. But they got beat by 37, so they're going to ask that question.
I genuinely don't know the answer to this, because I don't pay a ton of attention to like the NFL coaching carousel. But did Dave Canales have championship experience coming in?
Yeah, I mean, he was with Seattle. He was either with Seattle right at the very end of their run, Legion of Boom, getting to Super Bowl appearances, or just missed it. But he was with Pete Carroll, championship coach, who obviously got to a couple Super Bowls. And his big thing was reclamating quarterbacks, Geno Smith, getting to the playoffs last year with Tampa. Like, he's been in the playoffs quite a bit as a lower tier coach to even offensive coordinator.
But so because I'm not really saying this about Canales, but I just think that Charles Lee, having directly come from that championship experience, knowing the preparation, what it takes in the offseason, in the lead up to the season, and then the things you have to do daily during the season, I just think that is going to be the biggest benefit of bringing him into this organization.
Yeah, young guy that has already won at a really high level. It's a nice mix. The 60-game thing, it's crazy, right? The last 10 years, there have been 3 teams to win 60 games, and Charles Lee was on every single one of those coaching staffs, 2 with Bud, with the Hawks and the Bucks, and then 1 with Missoula in Boston. So that's nice to see. Okay, what's not nice to see, and everybody was firing off the jokes on Twitter about how this Charlotte fan base just can't have nice things, and we're losing not only against the Saints in week 1, but we're also losing a beloved broadcaster here in the city of Charlotte. Ashley Shamity moving on from the Bally broadcast crew, no longer going to be with Eric Collins and Del Curry. Everybody absolutely loved that trio. I don't know where she's moving on specifically. I don't know if it was in her Instagram message, but what we do know is that she was actually on the sideline for ESPN for college football games in week 0, I believe, if not week 0, week 1. It's a weird
She does Brave stuff
football.
too.
Does Brave stuff. She was doing CMT stuff a while ago, which was different, but she's been on TV with a bunch of different platforms, a bunch of different areas. And so I don't know where she'll be going, but we had always suspected this. We always knew this was going to happen for the last couple of years. Eric Collins gives the extremely nice and also what seemed like a foreshadowing farewell. And Ashley said, no, actually, I'm not leaving right now. Eric was just being kind in his goodbye message, which I believe, Ashley. It's just maybe Eric was like, yeah, dude, she's got so many opportunities. Maybe she's going to be gone.
He saw the writing on the wall.
Right. It could just it's very possible that this is her last broadcast. And it ended up being so with the Hornets. So Ashley Shamity moving on, and it's going to be tough for people, man. After 6 years with the team, people certainly liked her, Eric Collins, and Del Curry as a crew.
Well, it's a testament to her and her abilities and the Hornets' abilities, the Hornets as a franchise and Bally's to identify talent, because you not only have Ashley moving on, but before her, Steph Reddy, who everyone loved. She moved on to work for, NBA overall and do some national broadcasts. So they've hit it out of the park 2 straight times. And I feel like Ashley did such a great job on a studio show, in particular, pregame, halftime, that was constantly in flux. And that can be difficult. It's you and I have our own issues because we have a marriage issue because we have to see each other constantly. But you and I have developed a rhythm over the years, right? And it can be difficult if you're constantly swapping out that talent to develop that rhythm. And she did a really good job of kind of holding all of that together. So the Hornets have a big challenge because I don't know what's going to become of that studio show, because we also haven't gotten any confirmation on Terrence as well, who I thought did a great job last season. Is he going to be on the booth? Who's he going to be on the booth with? It's a lot to figure out as we question the future of Bally's in general.
Yeah, right. I don't even think they know, to be quite honest with you. I don't think they have everything figured out. I'm not sure they know 100% if T.O. is coming back, because remember, Oglesby, as good as he was and as honest as he was, right? Like, he would share some criticism with the team in a way I don't know a lot of other studio co-hosts would do in the past. What Terrence also does is a lot of college basketball stuff, the Field of 68. He's great there, and that consumes a lot of his time. I think that's where his love is. That's where his passion is. So now that we don't know about Terrence Oglesby, we don't know who's going to replace Ashley Shamity. You're right that they've knocked at certainly the sideline reporter and the studio host in the same role, but also Collins and Curry. They're
gold. Locked in. That's good. I don't think we need to make any changes there. No additions. I will say for the studio show that I have a lot of tape on me. I'll send my email. That I only pay attention to college basketball as I'm cramming for the draft. So you don't have to worry about me getting distracted. I'm right there.
There you go. Doug Branson, baby. A face made for podcasting, YouTube, and television, even Bally. By the way, last thing for Ashley, a couple things. One, stepping in to the shoes of Stephanie Reddy, that's really tough to do. In fact, she spent pretty much the first 2 years of her role with Charlotte and Bally fielding questions about how difficult it was to replace somebody as beloved as Steph Reddy. So that's one. Two, I think it was it's interesting to see just how much better she got every single year, to the point where, she's ready to do this. Like the last couple of seasons, she's ready to move on to what you might consider greener pastures, certainly national pastures. But at the beginning, it's not like she was even bad. You just recognize how much she's grown from year 1 to where she is year 4, year 5, year 6 in the industry. Like, she got really good. She got real fluid. She got to a point where the players really enjoyed talking to her because she's so kind. It is exactly what you get on camera is what you get behind the scenes with her being so kind and engaging. So all the best wishes in the world to Ashley, because I'm sure she's going to crush it wherever she goes.
Well, that's what's going to be difficult about replacing her is that she was able to get moments. And that's really, I think as a sideline reporter, that's job number one. There is some like informing and telling stories throughout the game, and I think those are all great. And some people do it really well, which I think Ashley did, and there's some people who don't do it as well. But to me, job number one is to get those moments after a game. And to do that, players have to feel comfortable with you to give you those moments, and I think she did a great job. But I'll give her another big compliment, which is that when you're a sideline reporter for Bally's, really you're kind of a pseudo-employee of the team. And so what happens a lot of times is you have team employees asking other team employees, the coach, questions that I don't think would be considered very difficult questions to answer and don't get very informative answers. What Ashley was able to do is ask difficult questions in difficult years, in difficult seasons where there were a lot of losses piling up. She asked difficult questions to Steve Clifford and got good answers in the past couple of seasons and to Borrego before him. And, I think people were smarter post-game after watching some of that. And Eric does a good job of that, too, asking kind of, difficult questions that get good answers. So we've had a good crew. We've been spoiled. We haven't been spoiled with the product on the floor, but the product off the floor has not gone down to the level of its competition. It has actually risen and elevated it. So hopefully they get on it and hire somebody that's going to take that and run with it.
The product isn't great. The packaging is nice. Thank you for the wrapping. Excellent job wrapping the present for us. We appreciate it. Coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast. Let's go rapid fire. We do need to give you the Bally update, by the way, just to make that official. Also, Vasa Micic comments and the what if game. Going to be a busy last segment, so let's get to it. Coming up next. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You've heard us talk about FanDuel quite a bit. America's #1 sportsbook, after all. Well, we have something a little different for you now through September 22nd. All FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Make sure you get in on this, man. You only got 2 more weeks. So even if you only miss one, it's still worth the free trial here for 2 weeks of NFL football out of market. With YouTube, their TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game, and all you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. Just visit FanDuel.com, and you can download America's #1 sportsbook. More Locked On Hornets ahead.
And don't bet on the Titans.
Don't do that. All right, Doug, let's go first real quickly. Just the update on Bally. It's back. We didn't think it was going to be back. It's back. Amazon Bally, they're teaming up once again, and that's how you will watch your Hornets team if you don't have cable, and I apologize for that.
So a few weeks ago, we were giving you the reporting that Amazon had walked away from the deal with Bally to take over the streaming apparatus through Amazon Prime Video. They had walked away from the deal, and Bally was going to have to look for some alternative to save themselves from bankruptcy, and it wasn't looking good. But I always get fooled by these things. In these negotiations, things get reported. It's part of the negotiation. Well, it looks like now that Amazon has come back to the table and they've gotten a deal done with Bally for not only the NBA, but also the NHL and the MLB. And I don't think this is official yet, so just stay tuned. Hold on. Buckle your seatbelts. But it looks like that Amazon is going to be broadcasting this content to local fans for $20 a month. So the pricing doesn't really change, but hopefully with Amazon's, sort of backing servers, that kind of thing, you're really looking for reliability at this point if you want to cut the cord and watch the Hornets. So that's where it looks like this all may be heading. Bally, you just can't get rid of them. They are cockroaches. They are zombies. They are too difficult to kill.
Well, and again, it's fine. I'm okay with the zombie as long as it gives me the Hornets game, and it does so every single time that they play. So if that happens, then cool. You probably don't like the pricing on it, But cool, but we just need the reliability. You got more comments?
Well, just that I think teams should be thankful that Amazon is going to be behind this, in that they get their bag of cash at the end of the year from Bally/Amazon, because that was a big question mark. Bally could make payments early, but as they go through this bankruptcy process, could they pay towards the end of the season? With Amazon behind them, I think they get the answer to that question. But there's a bigger question that looms, which is how are teams going to broadcast in the future? I think if the Hornets are smart, they're still looking for alternatives. They're talking to Amazon, but they're also, I think they should be looking for local broadcast opportunities to grow this fan base, to reinvigorate this fan base, put it in front of as many people as possible at an affordable price as possible, and nothing is more affordable than free over the air. If this team starts to get good, you want as many people starting to see it as much as possible. So get to it.
Just like Bally's and Amazon, Vasa Micic and the Hornets, they are back too. Micic had some comments, Doug. I don't know if you want to read those, but Micic basically telling us that after what was kind of a tumultuous offseason with him, there was the Denver Nuggets that were interested with Micic. We didn't know if Micic wanted to play with the team. Like, I guess there wasn't an outright comment that he wasn't interested in playing, but it just never felt like he was so happy to get back on the squad. I don't even know about these comments where he's like totally happy to be back on the squad. But right now he even says it. Yeah, I'm going to be a Hornet.
So we've been talking about this, several episodes this offseason about Vasa, and we didn't know sort of where he stood. And someone commented, like, where are the comments that say Vasa doesn't want to play in Charlotte? They don't exist. But what also doesn't exist is a comment that said, prior to these comments that I'm about to read, there did not exist a comment from Vasa about wanting to play in Charlotte or about being happy to be in Charlotte. And sometimes these are cursory comments that players just make because they have to, but they do exist for most players that, are being interviewed, which Vasa gets interviewed a lot because he's an international star in Serbia. So we're going to see more comments from him than, say, a Seth Curry or a Grant Williams or whatever. So we didn't see that. And that's what led us to believe, hey, he got traded here. It wasn't like he chose to be here. So does he want to continue to be here? And then you had the rumors of Denver, obviously the connection to Jokic. So he's interviewed on Serbian television because in Belgrade, they made a mural of Vasa. And so they were interviewing him to unveil that mural. And he said, quote, "I'm staying in Charlotte. That's official. There are some rumors, but nothing so strong that I can comment on it. I'm happy where I'm wanted, and I believe this season will be more productive for me." He goes on to say, "The new coach came. We're meeting him. He expressed his desire for me to stay. Although I'm looking at it from the outside, I think the team is still in the process of rebuilding. The team is still much younger than I am. He's a coach who has helped Boston, and he thinks that every team needs to have the highest quality players. That's a good thing for me," unquote.
There you go. Micic coming back. Yeah, tumultuous isn't the right word. Maybe just like changing, just like kind of like up in the air. We didn't know what was going to happen, but it's not like there was any weirdness from him being disorderly. It was just like, we just don't know. Hey, what's going on here? And now he's making it official or letting us know. I guess there still could be a trade, right? That's always going to be a part of the equation, but Micic says that he's coming back.
Well, you need everybody moving in the same direction, right? You can't have a player not happy about their role. You can't have a player playing outside the role that you want to establish for them, because that leads to conflict in the locker room. That leads to a lack of flow on the floor. So I think it's good that you have Charles Lee reaching out to him saying, look, we want you here. You're going to be a big part of what we do. I don't know if he's saying all of these things, but let's assume that he's saying you're going to be a part of what we're doing here. And because I think that's, to me, what Vasa is concerned about, is being on a losing team where he doesn't have a big role, because he wants to be an NBA factor, whether he wants to be a star or whatever, he wants to be a factor. And I think you can see it in these comments. He says that they're still in the process of being in a rebuilding mode, and I don't think he's very interested in that. The good news for the Hornets is that this is a perfect situation, because you're going to have Vasa wanting to play well, wanting to play his best basketball so that he can be attractive to other teams like the Denver Nuggets. And then if you don't play so well, then you've got this way to get out or way to get worse if you do want to move down in the standings to get a better draft pick. There is a team in Denver that I think will be interested in Vasa as they prepare for the playoffs. So you just got a lot of options, I think, but it's important to have everybody on the same page as you open the season up.
Well, and last thing, remember when LaMelo was out, who was getting the start? It was Trey Mann. It wasn't Micic. And so he knows where he is on the totem pole, at least as of last year. And Trey Mann did not play poorly enough for Micic to be inserted into the starting lineup. But to be fair, when Micic did get his opportunity, he looked pretty good. I like Micic as a guy to help facilitate and get to the basket. He's pretty good at that. So I like Micic. We'll see what happens as far as being a trade candidate can do, and if you can salvage some value for him if he indeed leaves. All right, last thing, explain to the people the what if game, Doug. What is your vision with this theme, this game? Are we starting another game before we actually get to the regular season?
Well, I will say that we are going to finish the Hornets grid this week because we've got David coming up on a future show. He's going to help us do most overrated, underrated. And then I filled in a lot of the boxes that we've already talked a lot about and were kind of gimmies. So we'll look at that tomorrow too.
Okay.
But then we have Sam Purley coming in, and he's going to help us fill out most athletic.
Gotcha.
So that will be it. Hornets grid will be out of the way. We still got to do who wore it best. We do have some, time in between now and training camp, I think, to get to that. But we are going back to 5 days a week, and I want to do position previews. And so I was thinking of what can we do segment-wise to make that interesting, because we can look at the players. We can talk about the big questions that people have. Definitely comment. We're going to do point guard first, so definitely comment. What are your big questions around the point guard position? And we want to get the fans of this show involved in those segments. But one of the fun segments that I came up with was what if game. And here's the what if game for each position that I want to do. Imagine that portals opened up in Spectrum Center, very like Avengers Endgame style, and out walks the last Hornets team to win a playoff game, to be involved in a legitimate playoff series, and was a couple of tiebreakers away from having a home playoff series. I'm, of course, speaking of the 2015-16 Charlotte Hornets. What if all of those players walked through those portals? And Charles Lee now has a conundrum. He's got to figure out, how do I incorporate the 15-16 team into my current roster? Who stays? Who goes? Who sits? Who starts? That's the conversation that I want to have.
I like
it. And we've got to figure it out. We've got to figure out 15-16 team, and it gets really tough right at the very beginning. Point guard position. Next week, we got to talk about not only LaMelo Ball, Vasa Micic, Trey Mann. You got to throw in some Kimball Walker. You got to throw in some Jeremy Lin. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, I mean it already starts really hard. I mean, I got some thoughts, but it's tough. We'll have to save those from when we play.
Yeah, so we'll look at the rotation, as a whole, and say we've got 6 or 7 players. We've got to really whittle it down to 3 players, but that's only going to be part of it. We'll take a look at the big questions. We'll talk about next season, but that's just a fun little game I want to play, and I'm going to put it on the community page on YouTube. So if you haven't subscribed to YouTube, do that. If you only watch us on YouTube, it's really important. Subscribe to the audio version of this podcast. It really helps this podcast. Even if you don't want to listen to us, you want to watch us, you want to see our beautiful faces, then that's fine. But just subscribe to the podcast and the audio feed, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get those. That really helps the show out too.
Yeah, I find that it's easier to do that rather than pull up YouTube in the car, and then when you exit out of the window, then you don't get to listen to us anymore. But guess what? You're able to do that with the podcast feed. If you just go to Apple Podcasts or Spotify, you can go surf the web, whatever. Just don't do it while you're driving, because that's dangerous.
It's about flexibility, folks. That's what we're trying to offer you here. Free flexibility.
For free, baby. We're not charging you anything. That'll do it for Locked On Hornets. Thanks for making us your first listen. We're free and available anywhere you get your pods, Apple, Spotify, anywhere. And you can also still check us out on YouTube. Make sure you check out Doug's Substack, everyhornetsboxscore.com. And I'm Walker Mayo. Listen to me on WFNZ every weekday from 12 to 3, talking about the misery with the Panthers, but maybe talking about the hope with the Charlotte Hornets. So you can tune in live, again, 92.7 FM. Have a great rest of your day. Be back with us tomorrow. We got Sam Purley, David Walker the rest of this week before we're back on daily. So make sure you hop on with some of those guests as we finish the Hornets grid. Still lots of projects to complete. Have a great rest of your day.